Oh, fuck. Okay. All right. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hey, it's been a while. Well, welcome back. Hopefully, I feel like I have to say this every time, but hopefully the settings are good. Hopefully they're better than they have been. Because I've done some messing around. I've may or may not have been streaming elsewhere. But yeah, here we are. Here we're back. I'll get into what we're covering real quick, but I gotta plug it on the gram, All right, perfect. And it is streaming on the right channel. That's good. But yeah, here we are. Oh, that sounds good, guys. I'm like a professional with this shit now. All the 0 viewers, but I am a professional with this stuff. Okay. All right, perfect. So, before we do all that, that's right. I drank like 2 coffees before this, so I'm a little all over the place right now, but that's okay. Okay. Sorry. Don't leave. I promise it'll get good. This is gonna be one of the best streams. I promise you. Dude. All right, here we go. Don't you love watching this just to watch some guy play on his phone? I promise I will. Oh my god. Yes, there we go. All right. I successfully promoted it on the gram. So we are good. So looks like we got one person in here. That might be me. But even if it isn't, if it is a random stranger out there, hi, thank you for watching. You're probably wondering, what is this stream about? And people always ask me, I'm a big football guy, big NFL guy. Big Detroit Lions fan. Not like, hey, who, like, college football is great. I love college football. I've been a big college football fan before. I still consider myself as a big college football fan. Not extreme, definitely more of an NFL guy. And people always ask me, they're like, Ian, why do you like the NFL more? Like, some people like prefer the college game, some people prefer the NFL game. 2 very different games, but especially down here in the South where I live, a lot of people prefer the college game. And for me, I'm a guy, I like structure. I'm a very analytical person. I like patterns. I like all of that stuff. And that does not exist anywhere inside of the college football realm. It's all messy, which leads to controversies, which leads to teams getting left out of the playoffs, to the NCAA making horrible decisions. Like, I feel like the NCAA, I feel like this is a very often talked about problem. Like, Nick Saban will bring it up. I think they brought it up on College Game Day, of how there's needs to be more structure in college football. And right now there's very little. And the NCAA just seems like they're making it worse, okay? Because we had our second 12-team playoff this past season. Indiana won. Fucking crazy that's a sentence to be said. But, it wasn't short of its controversies. I forgot where I was going with this, low key. But something needs to be done, okay? because now the new playoff format, Miami, all right, so Miami was a 10 seed this current playoff cycle. They went all the way to the national championship. That is impressive. Like, kudos to them. Like, a 10 seed, I would never have thought that a 10 seed would have gone to the national championship, but they did, and that wouldn't have happened in previous formats. But guess what? I'm pretty sure that would not have happened with this new format that they're rolling out, where they guarantee the power conferences, the power four, the conference champion, a playoff spot. So that'll put Duke in over a team like James Madison, which is, that's fine. Whatever. The problem I have now is Notre Dame, the team that cries, the little bitches, like, we're rewarding them for not joining the conference. Everybody has been saying, Notre Dame, join the conference. It'll be so easy. You're really not that cool. You're really not that high and mighty. Like, get over yourself and join a conference. But the NCAA was like, no. That's okay. Little Notre Dame. So now, if Notre Dame is top 12 in rankings based off of, people's opinions, then they automatically get a playoff spot, which I feel like defeats the whole purpose. And my thing is, if you're going to treat Notre Dame that special as an independent, well, treat UConn the same way. But let's be real. They're not going to do that. And UConn's probably not even going to scratch the top 12. Anyway, so with that being said, there's a lot of problems in college football. Now, we can talk about NIL and all of that stuff. I really don't know anything about that. Well, I'm thinking more structurally, because this is what happens. We see it time and time again. A team will, like Notre Dame, who isn't in a conference, will schedule themselves an easy schedule, win most of their games. Sometimes, not always. They'll still lose a couple, but it'll inflate how good they really are. So now, like, Notre Dame could just schedule themselves an easy schedule and then get in the playoffs every single year automatically, no matter how good they are. They could be fucking dog shit, but they play a bunch of dog shit teams. Notre Dame's going to look pretty good. So that's one problem. Like, University of Georgia should not be playing UT Martin in a regular season game. Now, I get it. The current format of college football, they heavily weigh on conference records, at least within a conference. So there's that. That's fine. But these are like meaningless games. Like, it doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't matter. I feel like the game would be a lot better if there was way more intense matchups. It was much harder for teams to get double-digit wins, stuff like that. And what else? Oh, yeah, the playoff format. I'll get into that a little bit later, but, we cannot be relying on the opinions of other people to get teams in and out of the playoff. Now, I think there's a theory. I have a theory that the NCAA likes this. They like this because they like the controversy, because then people are going to be talking about it. And if people are going to be talking about it, the more people are going to tune in, watch, interact, all that stuff. But here's the thing that I like about the NFL is that going into a game, you know exactly what you need to do to make the playoffs. There's a whole mathematical formula that you can use to get you into the playoffs. And like ahead of time, there's no surprises. There's no sitting, waiting like, oh man, am I going to make it? No, right away, because there's tiebreakers, there's standings, and everybody, for the most part, like the NFL, the schedules are pretty, like, Patriots last season had a pretty easy schedule, but they still made it to the Super Bowl. Like, it's a more even playing field. There's not going to be any teams that have short, easy schedules that can just coast through the season. And that's also the problem of there are sometimes outliers in group of four conferences or other conferences that are not in the Power Four that, maybe they'll have like one season where they're actually fucking incredible. They're great. But, they don't play anybody good. So, is it good enough to get them into the playoffs? Who knows? So what I've attempted to do is eliminate all of that. What I'm trying to do is make sure that we have consistent scheduling so it follows a pattern, which I'll get into. Every team is in a conference. There's no independence. There's no FCS games. There's going to be real games with real implications every week. So, I'll just go ahead and get started into the nitty gritty, the fun stuff, because this is what people come to see. Now, I will say, I promise you, if the NCAA sees this stream, if they're watching this, they're not. But if they're watching this, they're gonna be taking notes, and you're gonna see someday that this format is gonna be used in college football, and it's gonna all come back to this video. But here we go. Fuck, I'm already fucking up. Okay, so this is the fun part for me with all this. I love conference realignment. I am a big fan of conference realignment. And as you see right here, I completely eliminated the Pac-12, gone. But we do have the Power Four conferences is what I call them here. I did do some realignment. So the Pac-12, Oregon State, Washington State, just put them in the Big Ten. Felt like that was an easy fit. I really did blow up the ACC. Now, that's one thing that I will say, may not be realistic, is that if you look at the SEC was already a strong conference. Now it's even more of a gauntlet with adding Clemson, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Miami all in that conference. But hey, it's going to be entertaining as fuck. That'd be so fun to watch. I would love to watch that. But yeah, the ACC definitely became a weaker conference. But look, now you got Notre Dame in there, so they can still have their easy schedule if they want. But a lot of these teams they will lose to, like Pitt, Louisville. I did add Air Force, Army, and Navy. Added that that higher rivalry. So here's what I did. Each of these conferences are going to be made up of 20 teams. So 20 teams across the board. For every conference is going to have the same number of teams, which is 20. I looked up the top biggest brands in college football, and those are going to be the teams in these power conferences. So that's why you see teams like East Carolina in the ACC, Temple in the ACC, stuff like that. What else? You got Memphis in the Big 12. That's one addition there. You also see Fresno State, Boise State, and San Diego State also being added, and Colorado State. So I'm trying to keep a lot of these rivalries alive too. That's kind of why I wanted Georgia Tech and Miami and Clemson to be in the SECs, because they do have rivalries with a lot of teams that are already in that conference, like South Carolina, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Florida, stuff like that. Yeah, so these are the Power Four conferences. This is very visually pleasing for me. It's hitting the right kind of autism for me. I love making this. But here we move on to the next. These are the group of four. Now, like I said, there's going to be no FCS games scheduled. But with that being said, we have four more conferences, the weaker conferences. And they needed 20 teams in each. So I brought up a bunch of teams, some of the most winningest teams in the FCS, and just brought them up to play in these conferences. Now, it should be relatively evenly matched. I also brought in some historic college football teams, like the Ivy League schools you have in the American Athletic Conference. I'm not too confident about putting them in the American Athletic Conference, and it's kind of frustrating for me too, because I made this before Sacramento State joined the MAC, and Northern Illinois and North Dakota State joined the Mountain West. So this whole thing might be blown up, but I'm rolling with this because this makes more sense to me in my head. But in the Mountain West, we see a lot of those Big Sky teams joining here. So we got the Montana State. We got Eastern Washington, Cooper Cup's old school. Sacramento State, Idaho back in the FBS level. And I also completely blew up Conference USA. So Conference USA was the casualty here, so they are no longer a conference, and I split those teams up among all these other conferences. But yeah, American Athletic, we got Lehigh, and then a bunch of the Ivy League schools to keep those rivalries alive. And, you know, they're very historic college football programs with Yale and Princeton. You got some other big Southern FCS schools that are very good at winning, such as Florida A&M, Jackson State from a few years ago. They were pretty good. McNeese State, some Conference USA teams that snuck in, and then we got Middle Tennessee, Missouri State, and Western Kentucky. But honestly, like, it's a little goofy having, like, you know, Harvard play McNeese State. But whatever, man. Whatever. It's like the current college football conferences don't really make a whole lot of sense either. So take this with a grain of salt. But this is, yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. But here we go. We got the MAC. The MACtion, I added a lot of these Missouri Valley conferences or teams in there. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota. That is St. Thomas, Minnesota up there at the top. And if you do notice, like, I tried, all of these conferences are going to be split into two smaller conferences, the East and West. So, and I'll get more into that later. That's more for scheduling purposes. But also, yes, that, but also I think there'll be easier format to determine a conference champion. I mean, they don't have to do that. I haven't thought that conference championships, where they really fall into all of this quite yet, but I will get more into that later. But there's the MACtion right there. Added Dayton, added UConn, because I think a UConn-UMass rivalry will be pretty cool, but, you know, UMass is fucking dog shit. Like, I should just relegate them to the FCS or D2. Then we go into the Sun Belt, though. Then we got the Kennesaw State Owls in the Sun Belt Conference, which, who knows, that might be a realistic feat later. And we got Southern and Grambling State, which is apparently a big rivalry. I didn't know that until I visited the College Football Hall of Fame. But, you know, those are two FCS schools, pretty big names, so I put them in the Sun Belt. Also, a lot of other Conference USA teams got in here. Delaware, Liberty, Jacksonville State. But yeah, I think these are all pretty balanced conferences, at least for the group of four. So that's what I'm rolling with there. I'm talking a lot. But yeah, that's the conference realignment. And a lot of these are grouped together for specific reasons. I might come back to this slide later. But yeah, all right, cool. So we can talk about the scheduling. This is how the scheduling formats, because like in the NFL, it's a pattern. Like, you can predict the schedules for like the next few years in the NFL. If there's no major changes, it's following the exact same pattern. Like, you can look up 2028 Detroit Lions schedule, and you will be able to see the teams that Detroit Lions are scheduled to play. So with that being said, we'll get into the rules here. So teams don't schedule their own games. So Notre Dame, sorry, you actually have to play like a legit schedule. No FCS matchups. So the goal of this is to have every game matter. Okay? Every team is going to be playing 12 games, 6 home, 6 away. So every team is going to be on a even playing field. And I'm hoping that this eliminates the notion like, all right, well, group of 4 teams, this team won, you went undefeated, but are they good enough to be a playoff team? I'm trying to eliminate that, because if you're a group of 4 team in this format and you go undefeated, that means you beat 2 Power 4 teams, one of them on the road, which at that point is evidence that you deserve to be in the playoffs. So yeah, going back to that, each Power 4 conference will play 2 teams from another Power 4 conference and 2 teams from another group of 4 conference. And I'll go into some example schedules in the next slide. So, and those will correspond with previous year rankings. So, for example, University of Georgia. I had the SEC playing the American Athletic. So they would play games against South Florida and Tulane. Split, again, it's regionally split. So east-west of the American Athletic, Tulane probably the best in the West, and South Florida best in the East. Georgia, one of the best in the SEC, so they play those teams. If that makes sense. And vice versa. So if you're a group of 4 team, you'll play another group of 4 conference, and then you'll also play a Power 4 conference. 2 teams from each. 1 home, 1 away. And these will rotate every season. So teams will be seeing teams that they have never played before way more often, which I think is a really fun idea. And yeah, conference matchups will rotate every season. Each team will have 4 rivals that they will play every year. So I'm trying to keep rivalries intact. For example, University of Michigan, big rivalry with Ohio State. Michigan and Ohio State should play every season. So that's Michigan's one of their rivals. Now I did it with 4 just because I split the conferences regionally and then split them in half. So there's a group of 5 teams in each 4 groups of 5 teams in each conference. And those are their rivals, and they'll play each other every season. So Michigan, I think, in the other group, we can go back to this slide. Ohio State, they're going to play every year. Penn State, they're going to play every year. Michigan State, they're going to play every year. And I think the other one was Maryland. Just like, I don't know, there's an extra team in there, just throw them in. But yeah, there's that. Each team will play 2 non-rival teams from their other regional conference. So if the SEC is split into an East and West, then in the eastern part, Georgia's rivals are Miami, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Florida. So they'll play those teams every year. The other teams in the East are Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Clemson, Kentucky, and South Carolina. So Georgia will play 2 of those teams every year, 1 home, 1 away, and it'll rotate every season. And then you'll play 2 teams from the opposite end of the regional spectrum in your conference. So Georgia will then play 2 teams from the SEC West, and that will rotate every year, probably based off of listing the teams in alphabetical order. I think originally I had it corresponding with their standing, but what the problem we ran into is we would love to have, if their teams are in the same conference, they should be guaranteed to be playing each other like once every 3 years. So that's the problem we're going to try and solve here. But for example, Georgia could play, let's say, Texas and then LSU. And those are 2 teams in the SEC West, and the Georgia will play those 2 teams, along with the 2 teams from the other opposing conference, Power 4 conference, and the 2 teams from the corresponding Group of 4 conference. I'm talking a lot. Hopefully this makes sense, but it makes sense in my head, I guess. Here we go. All right, yeah, that's it. That's the scheduling. Maybe that made sense, maybe it didn't. Who knows? But all right. So here are our sample schedules. So you see, we got big 4, right? The Georgia, Michigan, Kennesaw State, and Western Michigan. But yeah, I was talking about this earlier. So you see Georgia, they'll play South Florida, Virginia. These games against South Florida, Virginia, Tulane, and Notre Dame. Those are South Florida, Tulane, that's their group of 4 opponents. Virginia and Notre Dame, I guess in this scenario, the SEC is going to be playing the ACC. And so Georgia will end up playing Virginia and Notre Dame. And then they got their rivalry games. So you got Florida, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and then games against the other side of the 2 games against non-rival teams in their respective regional conference. So that would be Vanderbilt and Tennessee, and then two games against teams in the other regional part of the SEC, the West, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. So there you go. Similar thing with Michigan, Kennesaw State, which very interesting to me because the way the pattern worked out is they would be having Notre Dame play a game inside Fifth Third Bank Stadium. Well, I think that place would probably blow up or collapse on itself if that actually happened, because I don't think they would have ever seen that many people there. But yeah, similar thing, Western Michigan hosting Indiana. defending national champs. But like that's such a goofy matchup, but like it's such a cool thing. I would say like you go to a small school, you can still see like a Notre Dame. You can still see teams like Indiana play. And I think it's more fun if these small venues get to host these big teams. Maybe financially it doesn't make sense or something like that, but who knows? All right, but those are the sample schedules. You know, if you are watching this and if you have a favorite team that's not one of the four up here and you want a sample schedule, I will send it to you. If you know who I am, you can contact me. Also, follow the Instagram, Pro Nerd Sports, if you're not following the Instagram, because I will be posting all of these conference realignments up there. But anyways, without further ado, let's move on to the playoff format. This stream is going by a lot faster than I had anticipated it would. But playoff format. Conference championships can still happen, but the record is not recorded in their final standings. So this is a goal to eliminate, like you think of BYU last year. We're in the playoff, played their conference championship game against Texas Tech, got absolutely decimated, and fell in the rankings. First of all, there'd be no rankings in this. So, but the conference championship games would not be another, like no team would be 13-0. Like they will be 13-0, but it won't be counted for in the official standings. So playing an extra game will not work against you in this format. And here's the fun part. This is going to be a 16-team playoff. So a lot of people are worried about the current format. Some people are saying there's too many teams in the playoff. They're wrong, okay? Because, again, Miami would not have even made it to the national championship if there was less teams in this playoff. So I think, if anything, there should be 4 more. 16, I think, is perfect. Don't touch it at 16. Leave it at 16. The reason why is because now there's no first-round buys. The only team was, I believe the only team that had a first-round bye to win is Indiana, and no other team has. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, it's like, well, they go so long without playing a game. They're not fresh. They're not warmed up. This eliminates that. Now they're going to be playing the game at the exact same time as their opponent. And typically, you know, the same format will apply. Lower seeds will play higher seeds and stuff like that. That should work out fine. Like the first round buys are going to be eliminated. So if they're even if there is a disadvantage to having a first round bye in college football, it's eliminated. So now everybody's on the same playing field. And here's the biggest part of this format. Standings and rankings are determined by record and tiebreakers, not a committee. There's no, I mean, there could still be rankings, sure. Like, I think rankings are fun. But I don't think rankings and people's opinions should have an impact on who gets into the playoff. I think it should be cut and dry. Like, you need to do this, this, and this. These are the tiebreakers. This team got in ahead of you because this, 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 and this. And you know that going in. Okay? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Because, of course, teams are going to get, like Notre Dame are going to get pissed off. Like, Notre Dame, I don't think they should have been in the playoff last season. Because they did lose head-to-head to Miami. But the problem is the committee had Notre Dame above Miami before BYU lost their conference championship game. So it's like, well, if Miami deserved to be in over Notre Dame the whole time, why was Notre Dame ever ranked above Miami? So that, like, I can understand why Notre Dame was pissed about that. All right. And then all Power 4 conference winners are guaranteed a playoff spot. Now, this could create some problems if you have like an East-West divide and the Eastern part of a conference is the strongest part of the conference. Western is the weakest. And the top Western team plays the top Eastern team and beats them, upsets them, and now they get the automatic playoff spot. I honestly think that's a little fun. All right. Like, if you're able to beat the best team in your conference in a high stakes game, I think you deserve a playoff spot just for the fun of it. I mean, it's not like you're going to be a bad team. You still did well in all of these other games. So, yeah, I think all Power 4 conference winners guaranteed a playoff spot. And then one playoff spot is guaranteed to the highest group of 4 conference winners. So if we go back, the highest ranked based off of standing alone team from these conferences, one of these conferences, the champion, they will get an automatic bid to the college football playoff. And again, this is based off of standings. So really in this format, like there will still be conference rankings. So there will still be like an SEC conference rank, but that will only be used in determining tiebreakers for within the SEC. Like the playoff rankings, because again, like there's going to be no more FCS games. There's going to be no more bullshit games that are really easy. All of these games are going to mean something. So we can actually confidently take into account the whole spectrum. So that's another thing. Like the overall record will be the first tiebreaker, even within a conference. Now, if they're tied on the same overall record, 2 teams in the same conference are tied with the same overall record, but one team has a better conference record, then that team gets the top spot. Does that make sense? This is basically, I'm recreating the NFL, but in the college football playoff. All right. So yeah, again, after that, the next 11 teams, highest ranked teams, will qualify for the playoff, and this will be based off of record. Now, again, because of the new scheduling format, every game will matter. So even you won't have scenarios very often where there's a really bad, or not a really good group of 4 team that goes undefeated and they get the top seed. That probably won't happen. And I'll explain to you why in a second. But like if they go undefeated, that generally would be impressive because that means they would have had to play and beat 2 Power 4 conferences and beat one of them on the road and win all of their other games. And there's also some other tiebreakers in place because surely there will probably be other teams on top, like in the Power 4, that do go undefeated, like Indiana. Like it's still possible. It's going to be much harder for a team to go undefeated, but if they do, like, that means they're good. That's basically what this is saying. So yeah, rankings will be based off of record, and so will the seeding. So, you know, there are automatic bids to the playoffs, but you know, the group of 4 conference winner that gets an automatic placement, they're not going to be the 5th seed. They're going to be ranked accordingly with all of the other teams that make the playoffs. So say Indiana, Ohio State, 2 best teams in the country. Indiana wins the Big Ten. Ohio State then has the 2nd best record in college football. They will get the 2 seed. They won't fall any lower. If that makes sense. And I didn't write this down here. I didn't write this down here, but I want the playoff format to copy the NFL. I'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, seeding will be based off of overall NCAA standings. Also, welcome in everybody. I see we got 4 viewers now, so I don't know, big gains here. So I just want to get you in on some of the good stuff here. You can go back in the stream too if you need to, but here are some sample schedules based off of these scheduling rules. But here's the fun part. Boom, conference realignment right here. Power 4, group of 4. Really proud of those. Anyways, so hold on. You weren't supposed to see that yet. But anyways, here are the tiebreakers. These are, I haven't fully finalized my thoughts on these, but you know, obviously, so the seeding will be based off of standings. So 2 teams with the same record, say the same record. How do you determine which team will be placed on top of the other team? Well, first, head-to-head results. I think they proved this season the importance of head-to-head results. If you beat a team and you have the same record, you're going to be ranked above them. I think that's completely fair because you must be a better team if you beat them, right? Who knows? Again, brought up the conference tiebreaker. So within a conference, if two teams are tied and they didn't play each other, whoever has the better conference record will be ranked ahead. And then, common opponents. Did these teams play any similar teams? If so, what were their records against said teams? Whoever has the best record will go above them. Now, this is the interesting part. After that, strength, SOV, strength of victory. So what's the combined record winning percentage of the teams that this team has beaten? Is it higher, lower? This will kind of weed out some of those smaller teams. So there's say there's a bunch of group of 4 teams that have 1 loss. There's also a bunch of teams in the Power 4 that have 1 loss. Chances are the team in the Power 4 have a better strength of victory than the teams in the group of 4. So they will end up being ranked above them. I think that's fair. After that, if somehow they're tied on that, and that's really stretching it. Strength of schedule. So not only their victories, but everybody that they played. Did they have any bad losses? Did they lose to any teams that did horrible that season they should not have lost to? That's kind of what that's accounting for right there. And then after that, I don't fucking know. Maybe a coin flip. Who knows? But yeah, that's the playoff format. And if we move on ahead right here, this is what the playoff field could have looked like this most recent season. With 16 teams in the format that I just laid out. You see, you got North Texas in there from the ACC. Or not ACC, American Athletic. Lots of SEC teams. Notre Dame's in there. Vanderbilt's in there, which is interesting. BYU still have a solid rank. James Madison getting a very generous ranking there. And these are all based off of their records and tiebreakers and all of that. So, who knows? Alabama, Miami, probably better than James Madison. But based off of how they played in the regular season, prove it on the field. Prove it on the field. If these teams are better than James Madison, we can't just assume because James Madison played lesser teams that they are worse. Let them settle it on the field. And this matchup, if you think of it like a March Madness bracket, kind of a little combination between a March Madness bracket and NFL playoffs. So 16 seed Utah will go to Indiana and play the Hoosiers. Same thing. So teams on the left, they'll be hosting first round games. Teams on the right are traveling for these first round games. And then I want that trend to continue. I know we do the bowl games later in the rounds. That's completely fine. But I don't want it like a set bracket. I want it that the lowest seed will always play the highest seed, regardless. And that might be difficult with advertising, marketing, stuff like that, trying to get teams to get guaranteed matchups so you can go ahead and start promoting the game. So that might be a little wishy-washy there. But say 13 Miami played Georgia and they beat Georgia in the first round. Then Miami's next matchup would probably be, assuming if everyone else on the right lost their first round, their next matchup would be Indiana. And stuff like that. I like that kind of format too. Okay. Well, I just yapped for a very long time. Those are my ideas for the changes in college football. I think this is a foolproof plan. I really don't think the problems that college football has right now are really that hard to fix. Be so for real. So yeah, I fuck with this heavily. Oh, dude, I just love looking at it. I'm such a nerd for this. I just love staring at it. Oh yeah, very pleasing to my eye, but I love this stuff. Anyways, if you did tune in to the 4 people that did, I love you so much. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you guys all in the next one.